All right, folks, if you're dreaming of that government job, well, you got to stay updated, right? It's all about current affairs. And sometimes those press releases, oh boy, they can be a real headache.
You're telling me. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack sometimes,
Yeah,
though.
exactly. But hey, that's why you're here, right? With us on this deep dive, we're going to help you make sense of it all. Today's all about a super relevant topic for those Indian government exams. What was it again?
Recent developments in agriculture and farmer welfare, all straight from a December 22nd PIB release. So yeah, lots of potential exam questions packed in there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's amazing how much info they squeeze into those things.
Yeah.
But just memorizing the facts, that's not going to cut it, right?
Not at all. You got to get the why behind those policies, the context. It's all about connecting those dots, you know? That's what really makes your exam answers shine and shows those examiners you're not just regurgitating facts.
All right, you got to show them you can think critically. So let's jump right in. The PIB mentions that December 23rd is National Farmers Day. Seems like a good place to start. Why this date? Is there like his historical connection or something?
There is. It's not just a random date, you know?
Uh,
It's the birth anniversary of Chaudhry Charan Singh, our fifth prime minister. He was a huge champion for farmers, for their rights, for rural development, the whole thing. His ideas are still super relevant today, which is why you got to know about him for those exams.
Makes sense. It's like a direct link from the past to the policies we see today. Fascinating. Okay, now here's something that really caught my eye. Record food grain production in 2023-24. A whopping 332.2 million tons.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. It's really a testament to how hard our farmers work, you know, especially with all the challenges they're up against. This achievement is a big deal for food security in India, and it could even affect things like, exports and the global market. You might even see exam questions asking you to break down all the factors that contribute to this, how it impacts the economy, things like that.
Oh, I bet. So it's not just a number to memorize. It's like a window into how our agricultural landscape is changing, right? Okay, now let's tackle the elephant in the room, government schemes. This POB release mentions a bunch. PM Kisan, PMFBY, PMKMY. I'm already picturing those multiple choice questions.
Oh, they'll definitely be there. Understanding what each scheme does, like its core purpose is really key here. Like take PM Kisan. That's all about giving farmers direct income support. PMFBY, that's crop insurance, a safety net when things go wrong. And then you have PMKMY, which is all about securing their future with pensions. So, yeah, you might see questions asking you to compare and contrast them or analyze their impact, on farmer welfare.
So it's like a toolbox, right? Each scheme is a different tool for a different need.
Yeah.
And here's one that really piqued my interest. The credit guarantee scheme for ENWR-based pledge financing.
Oh, yeah, that's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Basically, this one empowers farmers by letting them use their stored crops as collateral for loans, make sure they have access to credit when they need it most.
Okay, so it's like turning their grain storage into their own personal bank. But how does that actually work?
It uses these things called electronic negotiable warehouse receipts, or ENWRs. Those are like digital documents proving they own the stored goods. They can use those ENWRs issued by, what are they called, accredited warehouses to get those loans from financial institutions.
Wow, so it's like a tech upgrade to traditional financing, bringing more transparency and efficiency to the whole process.
Exactly. And, this could be a perfect exam question. They could ask you to explain how this scheme uses technology to empower farmers, or maybe how it helps financial inclusion in the agriculture sector.
Yeah, it's way more interesting than just memorizing flashcards, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But the PIB release goes beyond the big schemes, right? It also talks about other initiatives aimed at boosting the agriculture sector as a whole, like a whole ecosystem of smaller things.
Right. Because remember, the exams aren't just about knowing the individual schemes. They want to see if you understand the government's overall strategy, their big picture approach to agriculture and how they're trying to improve things for rural communities. Yeah, it's all about seeing the big picture and understanding how all the pieces fit together.
Exactly. So let's dive into some of those smaller but still important initiatives. One that caught my eye is this Namo Drone Didi. It's about empowering women's self-help groups with drones. Like drones for agriculture. Sounds pretty high tech.
It is, but it's happening right here in India. They can use these drones for, like, all sorts of things. Spraying fertilizer, keeping an eye on crop health, even checking irrigation. And the DD part, well, that shows you it's all about empowering women in agriculture, which is something that often pops up in those exam questions about social and economic development.
Yeah, I could see that. So it's not just about technology. It's about using it in a way that makes things more inclusive, right? Like bridging that gender gap in agriculture.
Exactly. And to make these drones more accessible, the government is even providing financial assistance to these women's SHGs. So, they can actually use this new technology. You
Yeah.
might even get asked to analyze how this initiative helps women in rural areas or what its challenges might be.
Oh, yeah. Those are the kind of questions they love to throw at you in those exams.
Yeah.
This is way more interesting than I thought it would be. It's like we're putting a puzzle together, understanding how the government is tackling agricultural development from all these different angles.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of tackling things from different angles, remember those soil health cards we talked about earlier? Well, the government set a pretty ambitious target, testing 5 core soil samples by 2025-26.
Okay, now that sounds like a classic exam question, but remind me again, what's the point of those soil health cards? What do they actually tell you?
They give farmers a really detailed breakdown of what's in their soil. The nutrients, the pH, all that stuff. That helps them decide what kind of fertilizer to use and how much. So they're not just wasting money and potentially harming the environment by overusing chemicals.
Ah, so it's all about sustainability and making the most of resources. Makes sense.
Mhm.
But what about those bigger picture things like empowering farmers, not just as individuals, but as a collective force?
That's where the initiative to form and promote 10,000 farmer producer organizations, or FPOs, comes in. Basically, these are groups of farmers who band together to pool their resources, share what they know, and get better access to markets.
Oh, I see. It's like strength in numbers, right? They can have a stronger voice and help each other out.
Exactly. This initiative could even link back to those exam questions about cooperative farming, or how to improve market access for farmers or increase agricultural productivity.
This is all starting to make a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
It's like all these different pieces are fitting together.
And we're not done yet. We still need to talk about a few more things like Kisan Kavach, which is all about keeping farmers safe. And then there's the Clean Plant Program and the Digital Agriculture Mission, which are both aimed at modernizing the sector.
Wow, the government's really going all out, huh? It's clear they're taking a really hands-on approach to agricultural development. I bet our listeners are already seeing how this deep dive could help them on those exams.
I hope so. But before we jump into those other initiatives, let's take a quick detour to a super important part of the PIB release, the budget. Because there's a pretty interesting trend going on there with how much money is being allocated to agriculture.
Oh, the budget. Can't forget about that. That's something every exam wants to know you understand. So spill the beans. What's the big story there?
Well, hold on to your hats. In the 2024-25 fiscal year, the Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare got a whopping Rs. 1,022,528.7 crore. That's a crazy amount of money.
Wow, that's serious cash. But what does that actually mean in real terms for the farmers and the whole agricultural sector? Like, how should we be interpreting this?
Well, that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive. So stay tuned. And we're back, ready to tackle the future of Indian agriculture.
You bet. We've covered so much already, from those big schemes to that incredible budget increase. But now, it's all about looking ahead, right? What's next for our farmers and the whole sector?
Exactly. It's time to put on those thinking caps and, connect the dots. Those exam essays often want you to analyze challenges and opportunities, so let's jump right in.
All right, let's start with the big one, the one everyone's talking about. Climate change. I mean, it's not just some future threat anymore, right? It's already impacting farmers across India. Unpredictable weather, droughts, floods, the whole 9 yards. It's got to be tough out there.
It is. And this is where understanding those government policies and initiatives is super important. Think about it. You might get asked how effective those current schemes are in dealing with climate change risks, or maybe even to come up with new strategies for making the agriculture sector more resilient, so it can adapt and thrive even when the weather's going crazy.
Yeah, it's not just about knowing the names of the schemes. It's about understanding how they work in the real world under pressure. Like, are they actually up to the task?
Exactly. And remember, climate change isn't just about adapting to bad stuff. It's also about being proactive, and adopting sustainable practices that don't harm the environment. Like doing things in a way that doesn't mess things up for future generations.
So like saving water, using less chemical fertilizer, maybe even going organic. Those are all things policymakers are thinking about, right?
Absolutely. And here's another huge challenge, making sure there's enough food for everyone, especially as our population keeps growing. India's done a fantastic job of increasing food production, but that demand, it's not going away.
So how do we keep up with that demand while also tackling climate change and, being responsible about how we farm? It's a lot to juggle.
It is. And that's where technology and all those new innovations come into play. Precision agriculture, biotechnology, all that data-driven stuff can really help us use resources more efficiently, increase those yields, and even develop crops that can handle tough weather conditions.
So it's like using the best of modern science to solve some of these age-old problems. But we also need to make sure that technology is available to everyone, right?
Yeah.
Not just the big farms with lots of resources.
Absolutely. If we want real progress, it's got to be inclusive. Everyone needs a chance to benefit.
Oh, and one more thing, market access. It's great to grow tons of food, but farmers need to be able to sell it, right?
Yeah.
And get a fair price for all their hard work.
You got it. That whole chain from growing the food to processing it to getting it to the market, it all needs to work smoothly. That's how you empower farmers and make sure agriculture is a good way to make a living.
This whole conversation has been eye-opening. It's clear that Indian agriculture is facing some big challenges, but also, wow, so many opportunities. It's exciting to see how the government's stepping up and how resilient our farmers are.
I agree. And remember, all of you listening, you could be those future policymakers, the ones making the big decisions, understanding these challenges, coming up with fresh ideas. That's how we build a thriving and sustainable agricultural sector that'll benefit everyone.
So let's take everything we've learned today and put it into action. Ace those exams, of course, but more importantly, let's go out there and be the change makers. Let's create a future for Indian agriculture that we can all be proud of.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And hey, this deep dive is just the beginning, right? Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep that passion for agriculture alive.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more awesome content that'll help you conquer those exams and become those amazing leaders of tomorrow. See you next time.